Good afternoon, everyone. I think we're ready. So, yes, welcome. And so thank you all for being here at Four Winds. And I'm pleased to introduce the artistic director, Dawn Wohn, who is going to give sort of an introduction about everything that they're doing here.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm Dawn Wohn. I am the artistic director of Coppia Concerts. We will be presenting a concert later tonight at 7:30 in this very space with INTERWOVEN, musical guest INTERWOVEN. So I really hope you will stay and enjoy that musical experience. At Coppia, we've been trying to put together these series in a casual environment, such as, a beautiful farm, and really kind of remove the barriers between audience and performers. A lot of people have commented how much they love seeing the performers up close and getting to see their fingers move, getting to feel their sweat even, and being able to also then talk to and share their feelings with the performers and also the community members that share the space. So we thought today, having this partnership with Chamber Music America, I'm very grateful for them for hosting this event and panel, and coming to our newly founded series in the first season. And without further ado, we can begin our panel.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dawn. And I just want to say a really hearty thank you to you and to Jay Hutchinson for your opening your doors and inviting Chamber Music America to take part in an event that takes place here in Wisconsin. Chamber Music America is a national organization. We're based in New York City. However, we are a national organization. And so we have a brand new CEO, not so brand new. He's 4 years plus, and he said, we're national, so let's be national. And so we're just thankful to Jay and to Dawn for inviting us here today. I'm joined here as well by Jenny Willett, CMA's Chief Operations Officer, who is going to be speaking a little bit later about CMA's National Conference. So thank you. And I just want to say thank you to our panelists who are musicians in their own way, and every way is very different, and how we all got here. I'm just going to say their names very quickly as we go down, and then we're all going to speak to the topic individually. Bridget Fraser, formerly of the Wisconsin Youth Symphony Orchestra. Dawn Wohn, who is, you just heard, she's the artistic director of Coppia Concerts, which holds their series here in this space. Dan Grabois, Meridian Arts Ensemble, and professor of French horn at UW-Madison. Keiko Tokunaga, who is the violinist and founder of INTERWOVEN, who is performing here later this evening. And then to wrap up, we have George Tzougros, who is the executive director of the Wisconsin State Arts Board. So we have so many different perspectives here on this conversation, and I just want to say thank you very much. So Kevin Kwan Laux, our CEO, has a very long history with both Dawn and Jay. He's actually judging a chamber music competition today in Austin, Texas. So we are here, though, and I wanted to just mention that he is part of all of this, the mix here. And as I mentioned, Chamber Music America is a national organization. We have our annual directory, and we also have a quarterly magazine. And all of you who are here, I hope you take a copy with Yo-Yo Ma himself on the cover. How many people can say that they have Yo-Yo Ma on their cover? So anyway, it's just great. So what we're going to do today is we're going to speak a little bit about how we got here. And this panel discussion is being sponsored by the Wallace Foundation, whose emphasis and very important, they place very great importance about their mission on youth arts. And so why not speak about us? How did we get here? How did we get to becoming musicians? How do we get to having a life in music? And it all started very young. Now, I'm just going to indulge just a very short bit. I'm a classical guitarist by training. I am also a Wisconsin native. I grew up in Racine, Wisconsin, and our uncle, James Ugurchian, was one of the founders. He founded the classical guitar faculty at the Wisconsin Conservatory of Music in the 1970s, when there were practically no higher ed schools of music that had classical guitar. So this is my lineage. And so I have now been at CMA since 2002. So anyway, that's just a little bit about how I came to music as my life, the center of my life. And I think all of us can say that music is the center of our lives. And so first I'm going to turn to Bridget, Fraser. And so how did you get here, Bridget, first of all, and working with young musicians and youth arts, developing youth arts programs and mentoring? So please let us know.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Susan. It's really a pleasure to be here with all of you. Well, like many of you, I am not a professional musician, but I am an amateur pianist, and I grew up learning how to play the piano. My dad was a church organist, and so music was very much part of my childhood. When I went to college, there was no such thing as a degree in performing arts management, but that's what I wanted to do. And it was shortly after graduation and a few jobs in between that I landed my first role with Ballet Chicago in Chicago. So that was my first gig as working in an organization that supported youth. That was dance. I then moved to chamber music. I was the ED of the Illinois Chamber Symphony for a time, and then I was the ED of a performing arts center, and then I found the most amazing position with the Wisconsin Youth Symphony Orchestras, where I led that organization for 15 years. And it was truly magic. It was an honor. Working with kids that are just at their most formative years and building a culture where they can not only sharpen their skills, but they can learn to love music and love to play. And, you know, we like to say we teach them not only to read music, but to read the room and to be really emotionally intelligent and to commit to something and to communicate with each other and with their peers and also with professional musicians, which is so incredibly important in their journey. So that's, in a nutshell, that's why I'm here, and it's really, truly an honor to work with kids. They are the best.
That's great. Thank you so much, Bridget. So I just want to ask you a few questions before we move on down to the other panelists here. So working with youth and working with, of course you had audition practices, you had chamber music ensembles, and so are there any particular things in the past that you had worked on with mentoring that you would want to speak about?
Well, mentoring, I think, was really just part of WISO. It was part of every Saturday. I think, you know, the conductors, of course, are mentoring the kids along the way. The staff mentors the kids. We really looked at the whole kid. I mean, a lot of these kids have support at home, but many do not. So, you know, we work with families that need extra help. And we create opportunities for them to be mentored by professional musicians. And I think that many kids who go through that program will point to that as some of the highlight of their time with the organization.
That's excellent. So in terms of mentoring these young musicians, is there anything that you'd like to share? Like maybe is there somebody that you just said, oh, wow, they really need a lot of help, and how can we really reach out and really bolster their learning and then their participation? So I think that participation is a big big thing of probably what you did in inspiring the kids to bring them together.
I can think of one instance where we had a young man who really was on the spectrum, on the autism spectrum, and he started out in the lower orchestras, and he had a very difficult time paying attention, and he was often had to sit out, but with a lot of patience and with a lot of working with the family, as he got older and was able to manage his time better and his emotional responses better, he elevated himself through the program and ended up in the top performing orchestra. And I think, that was a prime example of the whole child, looking at the whole child and making sure that access was provided.
That's excellent. That is just beautiful. And Wisconsin, here we are in Wisconsin, and here we are in the Midwest. And there is a big band culture here as well as strings. And so it's just great to have you, who had led this in terms of the strings.
Well, yeah, and I guess I just want to say one thing, too. I think, a best-in-class thriving arts ecosystem can only be best in class if K through 12 education is also part of the mix. And, that, I think, as a child starts out with their musical journey in grade school, equally as important, and working up through and then being able to participate in a higher level program like WISO. But boy, that K through 12 piece is super important.
Yes, thank you for that. And I'm going to now turn to Dawn, because many of your musicians, Bridget, in the youth symphony orchestra, then many of them do not go on to pursue music as their life work, but some do, as you have just said. And so I don't know if you want to just say a quick word about any of those that just go on, and then we'll go to Dawn.
Well, sure. I mean, there's a whole raft of WISO members that have gone on to professional careers that sit in major orchestras around the world, some holding principal positions. But many become music teachers or audience members or arts philanthropists or, any profession. But I think they would all say that their time in WISO built the skills to dedicate themselves to a high level of performance, and they can point to WISO as a factor in their success.
Great. Thank you so much. And so that leads me to another thought, and then I'm going to ask you, Dawn, because now Dawn is violinist, and anyway, and I can just brag a little bit. She just received tenure here at UW-Madison. Congratulations. Yes. And so anyway, so Dawn, you're teaching. You have one of your DMA students is here with us today, and so okay. So what was where you started your journey? Was it in youth symphony, or was it in chamber music, or how did you?
Yeah, so actually my introduction to violin was through a local community music school. My parents are not musicians, so it was just an activity that they saw was available, and we just kind of walked into it, had no idea where we were going to end up. And I think they were very confused when I decided to pursue a career in music. And I think where it became something that I imagined that I might do as a profession was really when I started at the Juilliard Pre-College, where actually that's where Keiko and I met. And even at that point, I was not sure. I think until my senior year of high school, I was wondering, should I do music, or should I go to a university and receive a well-rounded education that my parents kept telling me was very important. But I thought the connections that I made with friends in the orchestra at that program, those were the closest friends, and they're still the friends that I have to this day. The understanding that we had of how we each had to manage our time to balance study and practicing. And yeah, just the bonds that we formed there were obviously forever bonds. And being in that environment, it made me feel that it was possible to maybe pursue a career in music. And yeah, that was, I think, where it started to change. I thought, perhaps this is something that I could do forever and hopefully make a living from it. So yeah, that's how my beginning of my journey started. And I think that's why eventually I really did think about, through performing, I started to miss that aspect of watching somebody on a day-to-day basis grow, on a weekly basis, learning to understand concepts and kind of planting that seed of enjoyment, or just saying like, oh, I just feel like I just really love Brahms right now, or Stravinsky doesn't sound so horrible anymore. Just hearing those thoughts that could be something that, even if personally, I was struggling with my performances, it's something that kept me going and kept me moving forward in my career in music.
That's great. So it was the pre-college experience. So you started as a young musician, and then you said, okay, well maybe this is my next career path. Keiko, and then here you are. You're a violinist. You're on faculty, but you've also founded a concert series, and this is the case with many of our musicians who have chamber music festivals, chamber music societies, and chamber music ensembles that they found. And it's really a conversation, a musical conversation between musicians that form ensembles and form these alliances in our younger years. And so now here we are here in Fitchburg, Wisconsin, and we have you heading up a concert series, and you're inviting someone that you were an early student with. So do you have any thoughts about your teaching now? Because now you're no longer pre-college. You went through Juilliard, okay, and all of that. And so now you are now developing that next. So what are your thoughts about the next? That you are the next generation of violinists and string players that you are mentoring and developing.
Yes, that is such a heavy thought that, sometimes keeps me up at night, honestly. I like to tell my students that what they're going to do with their music and their careers is going to be something that I've never imagined, and that I'm going to be so astonished to see that. And that's what I hope for. I don't expect that they take any kind of path that, I have taken. And I'm looking for them to build something new. And then, by putting myself out here and doing these kind of endeavors, I hope that by seeing that, they also feel like, oh, if I just have an idea and you just work really hard, you can maybe make something happen. Chamber music is very unique and very dear to every musician because it really is, as you said, a musical conversation, but it's also a musical conversation with the audience as well. I feel that I can communicate much better with the audiences through chamber music than, let's say if I was playing a concerto. It's just as beautiful, but it's slightly different dialogue because I feel that chamber music has that element of conversation and being written for a room that is smaller and being able to interact with the people after and share your thoughts. And that's kind of what Coppia really is about. It means a pair. And so, of course, the pair is my husband and myself, but also the different conversations that we had about music and relating music to different things such as wine or food or books. And, that's really how our relationship began and continues to be. And that's how I see music as something that not just somebody specialized or, just loves music comes to watch, but it's something that anybody can really come and enjoy and be part of the conversation. That's what we're hoping to do here at Coppia.
That's great, thank you. And so as part of Coppia Concerts, you are developing audiences. And so that means you're bringing in young audiences, audiences of all generations. And do you have any thoughts about how maybe, youth symphony students or participants are coming here and how to bring in them, because they are the future audience? And so if you want to just give a...
Sure. Yes, so for Coppia, we have been doing student tickets for free. We have always been reaching out to WISO and, Madison Suzuki program, the Madison Fellows, to let the teachers know that they can send their students here and that they would be able to come in without the barrier of the cost. Having student tickets be accessible is very important of course, for myself as an educator, but also because I fear that we are sometimes making the concerts too difficult for young people to come in, especially if they feel that they don't know enough to deserve to enjoy this experience. So having it being in a casual space, all of these factors, and we really think about that when we're programming as well, and not just the youth, but I'm also thinking about young professionals, people who probably played in the youth symphony when they were young. So we have talked about in the future, we've been planning doing some amateur chamber music programs to get the younger professional crowd in as well. We'd love for all those people who loved playing in symphony and band and had all their friends there come back and play together as adults. And I think that would really make it special for them.
Great, thank you. And when, as we were saying, it is a conversation, and there are moments in a chamber music rehearsal or performance, or just programming a chamber music performance, that there are certain things. There are moments that are absolutely magical, and these are the things that take us and just keep us with and thinking that yes, we are on the right path as musicians. And I think it's the magic that there's something you just can't define. So, speaking of magic, I'd like to turn now to Dan Grabois, who is a longtime Chamber Music America member and past grantee. And I've known Dan here in this group of people the longest. So I've been at CMA since 2002, and his ensemble, Meridian Arts Ensemble, performed at our commissioning concert, and they have received 4 classical commissioning grants for new works by American composers. So Dan, who is also on faculty at UW-Madison, you were a founding member of Meridian Arts Ensemble.
Almost.
Almost? I thought you were one of the first.
One of the first.
Oh, okay.
I can get into that.
Yeah, okay, very good. And so just speak a little bit about who is Meridian Arts Ensemble, and, just in the brass world, but then also I always found very fascinating, this is just my thing, is that you've always incorporated percussion, which is not something that you would hear in a regular brass quintet concert. So if you could just talk about forming as an ensemble and making certain artistic decisions.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Nice to see a lot of familiar faces, and great to see you again, and thanks for having me and all of us. So the group was founded about a year and a half before I joined, and really the person who put the group together was our now trumpeter emeritus, John Nelson. And the idea behind, part of the idea of founding the group was he was at Juilliard, where there are lots of great players, and he didn't feel he was getting enough playing time. And he wanted to play music. And also, when you're a trumpet player in orchestra, you spend most of your time counting rests. And he wanted to play. And so he got together with some friends, and they formed this group. And it was just a brass quintet, no percussion at the beginning.
At the beginning. Oh.
And their idea was, there's all this great music out there, written for brass quintets, and nobody plays it. And there's some pieces that people play, and some of them aren't that interesting. And he and the colleagues that he worked with were very interested in playing new music and exploring new kinds of sounds and seeing what could happen with this type of ensemble. They did go through a string of horn players, and I joined. The group was founded in 1987. I came aboard in the spring of '89, right as I was finishing graduate school. So we all, at the beginning, we had all gone to Manhattan School of Music or Juilliard. And we had this mission to play works deserving more recognition, often by lesser-known composers, which of course led us to think about commissioning pieces also, largely from our friends. And I've heard, so 3 people have spoken, and I've heard people talking about the hang a lot. And the hang is so important in terms of, like, for a group, you spend so much time with these people rehearsing, and they become your intimates. And when it works, it's so exciting. And when it doesn't work, it's so awful. And ours worked. And what happened was we started playing, we all had all kinds of music that we listened to recreationally, and it was dawning on us that we never played that music. And we just listened to it. So like a band like Yes, a prog rock band, amazing, amazing musicians playing super complex music, and classical musicians never play it. And you have to be really good. Or King Crimson, or Frank Zappa. And we started getting into this music and having the idea we could arrange this. We played, one of the early pieces that we played that wasn't a broadly defined classical piece was Lush Life by Billy Strayhorn, a jazz standard. And playing that piece, it sounded great on brass instruments, but we realized it would sound even greater with a drummer. And from there, John, the same John who put the group together, he started getting very into the music of Frank Zappa, which is fantastically complicated and full of, on the one hand, humor, some of it very sophomoric, but on the other hand, just incredibly complicated musical structures. And John got us all into that. And he started arranging pieces. And through that, I got interested in the music of Captain Beefheart, Don Van Vliet, who often, at least if you go back about 20 years ago, when you interviewed rock bands and said, who's the most important rock and roller of all time, everybody would say Captain Beefheart, most influential band. Very experimental band. And I started arranging some of that stuff, and we really needed a drummer. And so we did not ever say, make a calculated commercial decision that if we play with a drummer, well, maybe we'd make more money or anything like that. It was that the music we were playing, just like pre-drummer, the music we were playing that was contemporary music demanded a lot of rhythmic acuity and a lot of energy, and we really had to sell these pieces because nobody had heard of the composers or the pieces. And then playing the music of Zappa and Beefheart and other stuff, King Crimson, we did some arrangements of it in order to make this music real and to make it sound exactly right, which was our goal. Always to sound, if we're being a rock band, we should sound like a rock band. If we're playing a Costa Rican folk tune, which we did, we should sound like a Costa Rican folk orchestra. So that it took a lot of work, it required a percussionist, and it also just made us really close as a group. And I will say, I've heard a little bit here about playing for audiences. At this point, I've been in Meridian since '89, so it's a lot of years. And when I'm playing a concert with Meridian, of course I'm playing for the audience, but I'm also playing for my colleagues. Because we're like a family out there doing it together. And I love doing it.
That's great. Thank you. So getting back to how you got to become a French horn player, and then why did you choose the instrument, and what from your young years said, oh, I want that instrument?
So I grew up in Williamstown, Massachusetts, which is in the northwest corner of the state. It's a very tiny town of 6,000 people. It's a college town. There's not much else. But the students in elementary school started band instruments in 4th grade, which is, I think, unheard of now. There was a fairly lively music program. But in 4th grade, my dad had a sabbatical. He was a professor, and we were in Paris, which was awesome and wonderful. But I didn't start an instrument when everyone else did. So, of course, I was found out. All my friends are starting instruments, and I was thinking, what do I want to play? And I had a very long list of instruments that included basically every instrument except cello, because my brother had started cello. And it was really hard for me to decide what to play. And we lived right next to the elementary school, and one day in the summer before 5th grade, my mother went over to the elementary school, which involved walking for about 45 seconds, and she came back with a horn, French horn, because she loved it.
Okay.
And the way she likes to tell the story is, well, Dan would never shut up, so I had to put something over his mouth and make him shut up. But I took to it right away. I liked it. It felt good, and I felt comfortable playing the instrument, which is so important. We know as teachers that if a student isn't comfortable, they're not going to get anywhere. And I felt comfortable, and I liked it. And then I went to a music camp called Kinhaven Music School. I don't know if any of you knows Kinhaven, but I loved Kinhaven. And finally, I was at a place where I wasn't a weirdo. I wasn't a nerd or an oddball. Everybody who was there loved playing music, and it was the hang that was so great and that made me think, I want to be with these kinds of people, and I want to play, and I'm loving playing music. And I started playing chamber music at Kinhaven. Also, they're very rich. The camp is still going strong, actually, and they have a very rich chamber music program, and I loved that. Loved playing in orchestra as well. Then I did get that well-rounded education, but played a ton of music in college, and including a ton of chamber music. So it was a kind of a natural path for me, playing in brass quintets and wind quintets and mixed groups, to go out into the world. And after graduate school, I got a chance to play with that young brass quintet that was looking for a horn player yet again. And they asked me to join them, and kind of the rest is history. 16 CD releases later.
16
The latest
CD.
one just came out.
That's incredible. So you received 4 CMA commissions: Meridian Arts Ensemble, Tom Pearson, Elliott Sharp that was the first one I met you at, and then also David Sanford, who is a jazz musician and a brass player himself. And then the other one, there were 2, and then Seven Kings by David Sanford, which also incorporated another trumpet player. And that, just speak a little bit about why these composers were chosen. Was it a joint decision, or how did you arrive at that? Did you have ensemble meetings, or how did you figure this out?
It's a bunch of brass players.
I know, really, that's hard. That's a hard group.
Meeting is a little bit of a formal term. So typically, the way our group works is that, and it still works this way: someone has an idea, and we talk, we rehearse, we play brass instruments, so we get tired. So we need a break, and we talk about what's next. And the thing about our group that made it work is that we were always thinking about what's next. So we're doing this thing, what's the next project? Which I try to, by the way, inculcate that kind of thinking in my students. Hopefully that works. So these composers that we commissioned come from different worlds. Tom Pearson is a jazz pianist, was a big band leader, and wrote some great pieces, and some of the guys in the group had worked in his band, and we thought that we would probably get kind of a cool jazzy piece from him. That is not what we got at all. And we got a kind of post-apocalyptic piece with a tempo quarter note equals 30, and then, really heavy, but I find it just it's like eating a meal consisting of 3 steaks. I mean, it's just heavy and nourishing, and when you feel very full after, but it's also great. And David Sanford, as you said, he was a jazz trombonist, and now he teaches composition at Mount
Holyoke.
At Mount Holyoke, right?
Yeah.
And he's actually now written us 3 pieces, and just such a gifted composer. And we feel so privileged that we've gotten these 3 pieces. The Seven Kings piece, which is on all of these pieces have been recorded. Seven Kings is on our album called Seven Kings. And the idea there was not so much to work with another trumpet player as to have a piece for brass quintet that's all written out with an improvised solo part. So we've also done it with Adam Unsworth, who's a horn player. And we could do it with a cello player or a violist or a singer or anybody who's comfortable improvising. And I usually say if you commission 100 pieces, you get a couple of good ones, and then you're doing okay. We have 3 pieces from David Sanford, and they're all masterpieces. Elliot Sharp is a guitar player from the New York downtown scene, which probably isn't called that anymore, but that's how I think of it.
Oh, yes.
And that's a really different kind of piece. And, you know, a lot of these pieces, they show up on our music stand, and we play through, and we go, huh? And then we have to figure out the piece. But that's what we do as musicians. Even if we're playing Mozart's string quartet, which I've never had the pleasure of doing, the music's sitting there on the stand, and you got to figure out what it means, and that involves a lot of talking and rehearsing and playing and squabbling and working things out, and that's kind of the joy of being in this business.
Great, thank you so much. So, and they've received commissions through Chamber Music America's commissioning program, and so as a grantee. And then we have featured you on commissioning concerts at our national conference. And so the next person I want to bring into this conversation is Keiko Tokunaga, the founder of INTERWOVEN, violinist, who we now know has, we have a history here with Dawn. And anyway, so just tell us a little bit about how you came to be a violinist, number one, and I'm sure it started very young because you were in the pre-college, but then and then you were in a string quartet in the past, and then also now you founded this interesting ensemble, and just give us a little bit of a...
Okay, so I was actually born and raised in Japan, so if you have a hard time understanding my accent, I apologize. Anyway, right before I turned 5, I was watching TV, and at that time, my goal in life was to be on TV. So somehow, I stumbled upon a TV program that featured the rising stars of Suzuki violin. And I saw a girl my age wearing a beautiful dress, playing the violin, and she was just showered with compliments. So I turned back to my mom and said, "Mom, if I play the violin, can I be on TV?" And she thought about it, and she said, yes. So she told my grandmother that I wanted to start the violin. So my grandmother bought me a tiny little violin for my 5th birthday, and that was the best birthday present I ever received to this day. I started practicing. I started taking private lessons. Unfortunately, when I was growing up in Japan, we didn't have a lot of youth orchestras or chamber music programs that you would find here in the States. So most of the time I felt pretty isolated. I was very mad that I had to practice so much and couldn't play with my friends. But luckily, when I was 7, I was introduced to the pre-college division of not Juilliard, but the Toho School of Music near my city. So I started going there every Saturday, and I met friends who were also serious violinists or pianists who were taking music theory and solfege lessons. And that's when I finally realized, I actually have like-minded people who understand what I'm talking about, and we can complain about our moms, Anyway, so that kind of kept me going for a while. Eventually, I got introduced to the professor who Dawn and I studied with at Juilliard at the Aspen Music School or Festival. And he invited me to come study with him in New York, starting with the pre-college division and then to the college division of Juilliard School. So I moved because I was 17 and, fearless. I thought, why not? I can live in New York by myself. I started going there. Dawn was actually the first person to talk to me because my English was still a little iffy and I was very shy and very awkward. She came up to me and she said hello, and the rest is history. And that's when I really discovered the joy of playing in orchestra and serious chamber music, because I never had that before. And that really, triggered me to be more interested in this repertoire. Before that, I just knew the violin concerti and sonatas. Really, I had a very small library in my head, but everything just exploded all of a sudden. My friends are showing me all these amazing pieces, symphonies, string quartets, and sextets, and piano quintets, and I was just like, what is going on? And then once I started college, I joined the Ataka Quartet. They were just starting out. We were a student quartet, and I went through about 14, 15 years with them. We, raised the quartet together. And when I finally decided to move on to a different path, basically a few days after I left the quartet, the pandemic happened. So all of a sudden, I couldn't do anything. You remember, all the concerts were shut down, nothing was happening, and all of a sudden I was basically left with my own, with my thoughts. I cannot play, and there's nothing I can do to help the world. So I was really bummed. I was having a Zoom conversation with a peer of mine who, also wanted to kind of share the misery together. And I was talking to her about how I felt completely powerless and, I'm not really able to do anything. And music, it's not something that can help people sustain life. And what does it even mean that I'm a musician right now? And she thought about it for a second and said, well, yeah, music doesn't sustain our physical lives, but music is what gives us life once these needs are met, and that's why we have to keep playing. And that word really resonated with me and got me start thinking about who I was as a musician and what can my music do to give back to this world. Around that time, because of the pandemic, there were some Asian hate crimes happening throughout the nation, and I was quite saddened by that, but I was more shocked by the lack of reaction or how small the reaction was. And I thought, oh, well, somebody's going to do something, right? Crickets. So eventually I thought, oh, I should do something. I can actually help. So I thought about the best way to go about it, which of course was through music, because music is my first language, Japanese is second, and English is my third. So I decided that I would create an ensemble that would interlace the traditional instruments and sounds of East Asia, because that's where I'm from, and that's where many of my friends are from. And maybe I will create music and perform music that would show the bond between different cultures. Our motto as the ensemble is cherish the differences, celebrate the similarities, create something new. I just thought that, yes, we are different, and we should value the fact that we are different. And by, coming together as different people, we can actually, weave together a stronger bond as a community within America. And this has been a wonderful journey for me because I've met so many new friends and incredible colleagues, and we have been able to commission a few pieces and create projects that involve many different people from different ethnic backgrounds. So that's where I am right now, and here we are. We're in Madison.
Thank you. Thank you. So let us know a little bit about the instrumentation of INTERWOVEN and how do you interweave the...
Yes. So currently on our roster we have shamisen and koto player. She plays both instruments. Shamisen is the 3-string guitar from Japan. Koto is the 13-string. It's kind of like a zither. You put it on the ground and you pluck it. It could go up to 25 strings, but she likes the 13 kind. She also sings in the traditional hogaku style. We also have an erhu player who is also a violist who went to Juilliard with me and Don. He plays the erhu and the viola in the ensemble. And we have a Korean wind instrument player whose name is Gamin. She plays a bamboo oboe called piri, as well as sangwon, it looks like a handheld pipe organ, and it's gorgeous. And she also plays a trumpet that is called tepyeonso, and it is so loud that I cannot allow her to rehearse in my apartment. And in addition to these instruments, we have violin, viola, and cello at the moment.
Well, thank you. Wow. So the pandemic made you go into let's just say the laboratory, and come up with something. And so INTERWOVEN, I just want to say, has showcased at the Chamber Music America National Conference. This was a couple of years ago when we had our showcase at Drum, which was on the Lower East Side. And so, and like Dan, both of you have performed at the CMA conference. And I just want to say that both of you are, well, one is a past grantee of CMA 4 times, and then also Keiko is and INTERWOVEN is a current grantee of Chamber Music America and INTERWOVEN, and that is in our Artistic Projects program. The Lunar New Year program concert was unfortunately canceled due to a blizzard in New York, and so anyway, I look forward to attending the rescheduled. But so the role of arts funding is something that has touched on all of us. I know that, Bridget, you've probably raised a lot of money. And then we've got Coppia Concerts, which takes money to put all of this together. And we've got commissioning dollars, and then artistic projects program dollars. And now I'm getting to, last but not least, our art funder. And George, you are the superstar here in Wisconsin, I'm sure. George Tzougros is the executive director of the Wisconsin Arts Board. And in New York, we have NYSCA, which is the New York State Council on the Arts, which plays such a large role in arts funding in the state. And I know that you are at the helm of doing this for the state of Wisconsin. So I want to turn now the conversation to funding and the role. But first, George, how did you come into this?
In the beginning.
Okay.
So family lore says that I was born into the choir loft. My father was a church choir director. My mother was in the choir. And so that's the family lore. However, the reality was that I was in choir from elementary school to middle school. Middle school is when the middle school music teacher said, hey, the high school is doing King and I. You may want to get up there and be one of the kids. So I went up there and became, now all of a sudden I'm a theater person. Skipped the ninth grade, and when I was in 10th grade, played Groucho Marx in Minnie's Boys, a wonderful show that's rarely produced, but it's a wonderful show. And so all throughout, great music teachers, choral music teachers. I did play an instrument, but in that middle school, they make you choose, right? So you can either sing in choir or be in band. You can't do both. And so choir continued for me. And to high school, to college at Carroll College, now university, and traveled to Italy and Austria twice with the Carroll College Choir. We sang in the Vatican at the request of our travel guide, not the Pope, by the way. And so we had that opportunity. And so I have been directing the church choir here in town, the Greek Orthodox Church Choir, since 1988. And so I've been doing it a long time, and it's a beautiful way to keep connected to art and music. With a volunteer group that runs from 20-year-olds to 80-year-olds, almost 90. And to operate a volunteer organization, because a lot of people will turn to the guy from the arts board and go, you don't understand small organizations. And I say, if I don't do what that choir wants me to do, they leave, we're done, right? So it's a benevolent dictatorship. But it is an opportunity to give and take with a group of people that, if you ask them, they might not tell you they were musicians, but they're coming every Wednesday for rehearsal, every Sunday for the church service, and singing and singing and singing. As I came into graduate school, and Sarah's here, we talked about in the Boll Center for Arts Administration, they asked each one of the students, what is it you want to do? It's sort of, what's your mission statement? And in my case, what I said then and is still true today is I want to help people do what they want to do, either better or something that they hadn't done before that we could do. And the Arts Board, a 15-member board that the governor appoints, and our 5 total staff people with me as well, that's what we do. We help people do what it is they want to do, and whether that's giving them a grant with the small amount of money that we have, or providing technical assistance, or creating the opportunity to connect groups or artists together to either learn things from one another or create new work, et cetera, et cetera. Those are the great things that we're able to do. And so I've been doing this as director since 1996. So this will be the 30th year come October. And the only reason that that's true is that A, we've got a great group, and B, it remains interesting to this day. There's always something new to do.
Excellent. Wow, that's great. So you're not just a maybe let's just say a autocrat or somebody that's calling the shots or anything. You've got a board you've got a council that you report to, and it is a political board. Is it political?
So it's appointed by the governor, but I wouldn't call them political.
Oh, okay.
Because no matter who the governor has been, there's always been somebody from the other side of the aisle appointed by that governor. So it's never been, you must pass the litmus test that says you are of my party. And so that's what's kept it really good. And up to and including when we had the lieutenant governor as our board chair, and she was the one that was going to the people from the other side of the aisle saying, I want to hear what you have to say. Tell me what it is that you're thinking at this time. Because, as we all know, the arts are nonpartisan. Period, exclamation point. The arts are human expression. We should be in that position of saying to everybody, this is something that you should care about. And whether it's art, music, dance, etc., everybody's got an art form. In fact, when Ann Katz from Create Wisconsin and I go to the Congress in Washington, D.C., we will ask the aides, what's your art form? Because we figured, why do we set this up as an adversarial thing? We say, what's your art form? And they say to us, well, I sing, or I used to be a ballet dancer, and it was the best thing I ever did to be prepared for this job I have as a congressional aide. One guy said to us, I play the bagpipes, but that doesn't count. And we said, why? Why doesn't that count? Of course it counts. But I guess the thing to point to in that space is we are not one-dimensional human beings, right? And neither are they. And so they have an art form. They have something that they're connecting to. And so I think it's valuable to start the conversation there.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for that, George. And I think it comes with listening and conversation. And we have conversation among music. You have, the youth orchestra, and then we have amongst all of us who play chamber music or play for. But then there's also there's a very important thing that everybody has alluded to, is that you listen to each other. And you hear each other. Be it a musical statement is a musical statement, but also listening to each other in your, let's say, administrative hats. Because all of you, Bridget, you had a board, of course, that you were inspiring with your leadership, and then also your fundraising. And so then you turn to the arts board and for leadership, and also just for, I think the word is inspiration. Because when you make grants, and now Chamber Music America has funded grants, and we have some grantees here. When you give grants to artists, they are, it is something that they value so much. And it's like, you hear me, you see me, and you value me as an artist, as an ensemble, as an organization. So could you just speak a little bit about that whole philosophy?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is we hear them before we start making those grants, meaning we create programs that come from listening to people across the state when they tell us what it is they need. And then we do what we can to structure programs that make that happen. Again, we have limited resources, so we need to pick and choose our spots. But this is Wisconsin, and the Wisconsin idea says we serve the entire state, right? The borders of the state are the borders of the university, in that case, the borders of the Wisconsin Arts Board. So we are serving not just Madison and Milwaukee, but we're all across the state trying to help people do what it is that they do. And it inspires us when we go out and see what's happening, right? So we go to Ashland every year during January. Why do you go to Ashland in January? Well, we're not fair weather friends, first of all. But second of all, the Chequamegon Bay Arts Council, which we helped to form back in the early 90s, has their annual meeting. And they are one of our regranters. So we grant money to Ashland. Ashland matches it and distributes it there. And then you see what the artists and the community organizations can do, whether it's the chamber music organization up there or it's going into the schools and helping kids learn certain things. And again, we always tell them, it inspires us to go back to Madison and get back behind the desk and do the work that we do, because the artists inspire us. But you're very right. I mean, it has to come from listening, because otherwise we could make up programs that are useless to people, or worse yet, that they're chasing money for the sake of chasing money. We need the money to meet their needs. And we know state money is only one portion of that. There's private philanthropy that's going on. There's local government. There's local foundations, et cetera. It's all part of a mix. And so we need to know what our spot is based on the conversations we have.
Oh, thank you for that. And could you speak a little bit about your arts and education? Do you have special programs for arts and education, especially for youth education?
So there are a couple of answers to that question. We have our Creative Communities program, which is actually happening right now, where we give money to arts organizations that are doing work in schools or schools that are bringing artists into the schools. But we also have a group in our state which we've helped to bring together, which is called the Wisconsin Partners for Arts Education. So it's the Arts Board, it's the Department of Public Instruction, it's Create Wisconsin, it's the music educators, the dance educators, the visual arts educators, et cetera, coming together a couple times a year to talk about what it is we're doing together to lift up arts education. Because I think, Bridget, you kicked it off beautifully by saying, hey, it's about K-12. And thinking about it as a church choir director, if they're not learning it in the schools, then the church choir is going to dissolve at some point because they're not taught to sing together. And so we really have to support the teachers. At the same time, we need to promote arts education. At the same time, we need to lift it up into view for people to understand that it's not just because we're training musicians that are going to sing or play or whatever, or paint in their studio, but it's part of their lives, and make it really important to them to understand that how it's part of their lives.
That's great, thank you. And the French word for together is ensemble. So there you have it. So we're here together. So now, okay, thank you, all of you. Do we have any? Yes. Do we have any questions? Anything that anybody would like to chime in? Yes.
It's a little bit complicated because it started one of the very first things you said about trying to get people to come to our concerts. Yet not a one of you said that you got into your instruments because you went to a concert and that's where you sung.
Oh, interesting.
The idea of the education. And I remember I was director of the School of Music for 50 years. And when one of our board members came in and interviewed a bunch of famous people in the San Francisco New York scene. And every single one of them got into music because somebody came to them, not because they went there. So this idea of somehow the notion of outreach is, instead of trying to always get them to concerts, we need to be taking the concerts to them, doing something where it walks into their neighborhood, into their lives. So I'm glad you're doing that stuff. But that sort of struck me as you were all living examples of exactly that kind of notion.
Great, thank you so much. That was John Schaefer. And so anyway, and so any thoughts? I mean, it's now we're coming. Oh wow, this was a great conversation. Any thoughts coming to anybody's mind that that are burning thoughts before we, or anybody here? Yes, Sean.
Just a question. I'm Sean Wong. I'm Keiko's co-conspirator.
Yes.
He's my boss. I'm Taiwanese American, but currently I work in Canada. I'm assistant dean at the Glencoe School of the Royal Conservatory, which is the only degree-granting music conservatory in Canada. I just want to note that Chamber Music America operates in some capacity in Canada because the Glencoe School is chamber music heavy.
Yeah.
My colleague Barry Schiffman,
Oh, yeah,
who's soon to
Barry.
be dean,
Oh, I
is
know.
director of the band string quartet competition. So we do a lot of chamber music, but at the same time we also feel a little bit lonely because we collaborate with our American counterparts. But
thank you for that question, Sean. Our mission is Chamber Music America, the 50 states. So yeah, we are here in the United States. It's part of the Chamber Music America was founded in 1977 by 34 musicians in an apartment on the Upper West Side. And so anyway, and they said, there's arts funding. And this is part of the reason, that was part of the impetus for why Chamber Music America came together in 1977, because orchestras, opera, dance, theater, all had representation at the National Endowment for the Arts. However, chamber music ensembles were here, there, and everywhere, and there was no real unifying body. And that was Chamber Music America. And we started, thank you for saying that about outreach, because that was one of our very first programs that we got funded from the National Endowment for the Arts 1 year into our almost 50th anniversary, and that is our residency program. And one of our first grantees was the Kronos Quartet, who is still performing and touring. And so these are the seeds that Chamber Music America has planted. And to Sean's question about Canada, we have many. Well, Barry Schiffman of the band has always come to CMA. He's been on panels, and we've had a lot of groups come in and showcase and perform at the CMA conference, but we don't have any funding. It's a different streams, and some of our Americans are very envious of Canadian funding too. So it kind of goes both ways. So anyway, thank you for your question. Okay. Yes. Okay, Dawn.
Yeah, just to kind of add to what John was saying, one of the reasons that Coppia is focused around chamber music is because it is that portable. When our artists come in, they go and work with students. The idea is that we can bring this to you. To have an orchestra travel somewhere is incredibly logistically and financially devastating.
Yes.
But chamber music is that. It's this portable group that we can bring to places. And we had talked about, my husband and I, when we first started, we had talked about how Madison is so rich with so many concerts and so many events, yet we were thinking even the surrounding areas, we're very close to Madison, and you see farms and it's pretty rural. So we thought, starting Coppia here would be a good idea in Fitchburg, and then to service some of the areas that don't have as many events. That's in our future plans for taking, Oregon, Verona, taking some of the groups out and having events there as well. So chamber music makes that really possible to bring a taste of that to schools or to different communities that wouldn't be able to host, a big concert or an orchestra.
That's right. Thank you for that. And George, yes.
So how many of you know that this is Youth Art Month? This is the month that we celebrate music, theater, dance, and the visual arts in the schools. The governor has made a proclamation. The state superintendent has made a proclamation. That's all good. But I think it's really important at this moment to raise the arts up and remind people that it's important. They learn to play, but they also are learning so many other things by playing. And that's part of why Youth Art Month is important, to lift up and into view. And what we're working on with the Partners for Arts Education right now is to make sure that people understand the myriad of jobs that exist in this industry. Because it is about the musicians, but it's about the audio, and it's about the video, and it's about all the technical, the lighting and the designing, etc. So there's a lot of jobs out there, and kids will go to their parents and say, I want to be in, like you talked about wanting to do the violin, and the parents will go, yeah, there's no jobs there. Why would you do that? However, yes, and you've got the beautiful music that you created, but there's all these other things that can be done. And so we're now working with the Department of Workforce Development and others to raise that up and into view, so that everybody understands it's not just the musician or the actor or the dancer or the artist, but there's a lot of other things going on in the field, and we want you to know about it.
That's great. Do you want to say something to that, Bridget?
Well, I think what I just want to maybe end by saying is that this notion of this thriving arts ecosystem is really just about a village, right? And everyone in the village plays an equally important role. The funders, the musicians, the artists, the administrators, the practitioners, everybody, in order for it to work, everybody has to have that mutual respect for each other and that commitment to, to the process. So,
thank you so much for that, Bridget, really, because I see all of us as arts workers. We are workers in this field. And so that means that there is an economic, thank you so much, George, for bringing that point in, because there's an economic important point to make.
Absolutely. And we never lose sight of the fact that the artist is at the center of it all.
That's right.
That's very important, because we always talk about the economics and then we drift away, but the artist is at the center.
That's right. Thank you. And Dan.
I'd like to add something that I think is related to that. So here at the School of Music, and there's schools of music all over the place, of course, not all of our students are going to go on to big careers in music. Many of them don't want to. They want to study music for the joy of it, and often they double major, and they'll go and be successful in whatever way they really want to work. But the skills that young people learn playing music are so important. And for instance, as a young violinist, being given a concerto that you could never imagine that you can play, and 6 months later you perform it. Or being put together with a group of strangers and playing a string quartet or a brass quintet. Problem solving is so intimately related to what we do. And also making a plan, thinking imaginatively about what do we want this to sound like, trying to find the vocabulary to talk about these issues. All of this, I think, makes children and young adults just more human and more interesting people who are going to lead more interesting lives. And I'll get off my soapbox now.
No, that's a great, thank you. And we're getting to the end of our time. Oh, yes, okay, yes. Maria.
I just wanted to add to what Dan is saying, is that you're actually cultivating the next generation of board members, audience development, and that is a key challenge, I would say, for music organizations and chamber music in general, because the audiences are getting older and older, and I think now the newer generations have a much broader palette of ways that they're being trained. So the music school is offering different options, but also just the creative entrepreneurial spirit. But the music education from K through 12 to college of people who don't end up going into music as professionals is crucial, because that's sowing the seeds for the next generation of supporters.
Thank you so much, Maria, because you just stole my line. And no, really, it's so true. Because really, so somebody has played in Wisconsin Youth Symphony Orchestra. Okay, maybe they become a doctor. They become they choose some other thing. They go to business school, they go to medical school, they go to nursing or whatever. But they're concert ticket buyers. Thank you, Maria, for saying that. And Maria, you were at the Chazen Museum of Art for many, many years, and so they are, they're attendees at our events. And so, without sowing those seeds in the youth, in the young part of our career and our awareness, then then maybe they won't go. And so, I don't know if you've probably got with a board, you've had to develop. With board members, and all of us have boards. Same Chamber of Music America has boards, and that they help to raise the funds. But then they're the ticket buyers. They also support the restaurants. They support babysitters that they need to hire for. I mean, it just goes. It's not just okay for the musicians. This goes wide. What we do for for the other parts of money around the arts. And so, I don't know, I said babysitters. But anyway, but it's the truth. Somebody's got to hire somebody to take care of the kids. And so, anyway, wow, okay. I think I think we're out of time here. Oops. Oh, yeah, we're a little over time. And so, anyway, I just want to say so much thank you to Bridget Fraser, to Don Wohn, to Dan Grabois, Grabois, I'm saying it in French, Keiko Tokunaga, and then also to George Tzougros. This has been a really wonderful conversation. I hope you've all enjoyed it, and thank you.